Welcome to Focus on Liberia. Enjoy the music and the pictures while we wait for more people to log on. Good evening and welcome to Focus on Liberia. We are broadcasting from Atlanta, Georgia. And to all the fathers out there, I say Happy Father's Day. As we wait a few more people to join, enjoy the music still. Coming Home by Tecumseh Roberts. Hello and welcome to Focus on Liberia. My name is Dennis John, and happy Father's Day. There are Liberians going back to Liberia from the diaspora returning home. One of those Liberians who returned home in the 2000s is our guest tonight, Mr. Sebastian Muah. Mr. Muah, welcome to Focus on Liberia.
Thank you, Dennis, for having me on your show, and congratulations on having this informative online medium for exchanging ideas.
Thank you, and happy Father's Day, Mr. Muah.
Oh, same to you, same to you.
All right. You know, when I was growing up, my father was like everything to me. So he was my superhero. I even imagined that he has traveled all over the world. Imagine, he used to tell us about New York, so I thought he visited New York. Everywhere I imagined, I thought my father already visited that place. Tell me your father's story. One thing I know that it looked like one of your children resemble you, right? When they're behaving bad, do you see yourself in them?
Absolutely. Both my kids remind me of how precocious I used to be growing up. I don't have a memorable father story because I was one of those who grew up just with a single parent, my mom. But the time I remember, my father was probably around 4, 5, 6 years old, and after then it was just my mom. So peace be to her. But that's my recollection of growing up is being with my mom.
Yeah, right. And to everyone out there, we'll say welcome to Focus on Liberia. Just Mr. Muah, briefly, before we continue, we want to say thank you so much for joining. At this time, I have a co-host, and I'll be bringing on my co-host to join the show. Stay tuned. All right. I have with me my co-host, Ms. Danielle Knuckles. Danielle, welcome to Focus on Liberia.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, and happy Father's Day to you, Mr. Ja.
Thank you. Thank you. And our guest tonight is Mr. Sebastian Muah. Danielle, why don't you just give our audience a little bit about Mr. Muah?
Okay, so Mr. Muah has 47 years of experience in the area of technology, public policy, and financial management. His current employer is Enclara Pharmacia, right? And he obtained his associate's degree in general studies from Truett McConnell University, then moved on to receive his Bachelor of Arts in Computer Science Mathematics from Mercer University. And then he also obtained his MBA as well from Mercer University. Then he received his Master of Science in IT from Carnegie Mellon University, Master of Analytics from Villanova currently. And he was also in the Harvard Business Analytics program at Harvard Business School. He has several certifications from Microsoft. He is a certified application developer, certified systems engineer, certified solutions developer, certified database administrator, and he is a project management professional. He is married to Heather Ling and has 2 kids, 1 sister and 3 brothers. So to you also, Mr. Muah, we tell you happy Father's Day.
Thank you very much.
And to add, Mr. Muah also worked with the Ellen Johnson Sirleaf administration, has a deputy planning minister, Deputy Finance and Development Planning Minister, and also the Managing Director of the Liberian Telecommunication Corporation. That's a big deal, Mr. Muah. Welcome to Focus on Liberia. We are glad to have you.
Thank you, Dennis. I'm humbled to be your guest.
All right. Let's first start by how you got to the United States, when you came here, and what were some of your activities here in the United States before returning to Liberia?
Well, I came to the U.S. In 1993, in May 1993, to go to college at McConnell College. I had a good friend that paved the way by helping me get a scholarship to attend McConnell. From there, as you see, I went on to Mercer University, and then I started professional work in the U.S. I started working in the U.S. in 1996 at Miller Brewing Company. At that time, was part of Philip Morris, a top 10 company in the U.S. in terms of income. And from there, that was the beginning. Everything after that was progressive. I went into consulting, with Deloitte, and I got to travel around the U.S. doing that. And I settled in Atlanta in 1999, 2000. I moved back to Georgia, and in 2006, I moved to Liberia.
And Mr. Muah, why did you move to Liberia?
Well, when I came to the U.S., I came with the purpose of going back to do something, and that commitment was part of my character. So I decided that I needed to go. I visited in 2005 for my friend's wedding. I was part of the wedding, and I saw what was on the ground. I saw a lot of opportunity to make impact. And when I came back after that July visit, I decided in January 2006, I was going to go to Liberia to do work.
Okay.
So was that July visit the only visit you had to Liberia before deciding to return home?
Yes, it was always my plan to return home. The July visit was not even an assessment. It was a visit to go and do something initially, be in the wedding, just to see the country. And I went there with a purpose. I got some computers, and I went on the ground in Monrovia at a Ricks Institute, where my friend and brother, Dr. Menje, heads. And I took the computer to teach the teachers how to use computers, only to realize most of them had not seen a computer before. It was at that point, it just reinforced my commitment at that point that I needed to be in Liberia, because there will be more impact to be made than being in the U.S. Working.
So how were you received when you went back home in 2006? And what were some of the initial reaction to your return?
Well, most of the people that I knew had either been displaced by the war, others that I went to school with, most of them were not in the country. So it was an entire new set of people that I had to meet and engage and work with and make friends with. So it was a whole new experience, like starting from the beginning in terms of relationships.
So when you returned, did you return with your family?
No, at that time I was single. I wasn't married. My wife, now we were dating, but she at the time agreed that I will I should go and pretty much in a way get it out of my system, get Liberia out of my system, hoping that it will be 1 year or 6 months or a year or 2 years situation, and it end up being 11 years.
Okay. So when you arrived, what did you find encouraging or shocking or disappointing? What really did you find out?
My experience arrived going to Liberia was interesting, because when I left New York at night, JFK, you'll see lights for days. You'll just see the entire place is lit up. When I arrived in Accra, Ghana, because there's no direct flight to Liberia then, I saw lights also. So I felt good. Okay, I'm in Africa. While I left in the US, I just saw it landing in Accra. Got on Bellevue and went to Liberia. When I got to Monrovia, it was a different situation. We landed in the day. It was rainy. The interim president then, the late Judy Bryant, was about to leave the country on an official visit. And so we had to wait on the plane until he boarded. And when I went through customs, it was a little, call it hush. I don't know how to describe it, but everything was small. When I got through customs and got on the other side, my ride had not gotten in yet, because the road to RIA by Shefflin had eroded. There was a big ditch, so there was no way for car to go across the highway. So I waited there for about 6 hours at the airport.
Wow.
But during that 6 hour period, I sat on the break and talked to the people who were there, because I was interested in understanding what people went through all those years, the 14 years that I wasn't there. I wanted to absorb as much as I could, just that 6 hours. And that was part of the experience. We had to drive in a 4x4 across the swamp behind Shefflin to get on the other side of the road that had eroded. And then we got to work moving around. So that was my first impression. There was bumps, potholes. Place was very dark. There was so much to be done. But the most interesting thing is, from the airport to where I stayed, there seemed to be hope in the eyes of the people. Everybody you talk to, they were hopeful, and there wasn't a lot of pessimism about where Liberia was headed. They felt that everything was over and was time to move on.
So what did you do initially? You started how business, started working with government. What was that process look like, and how long did it take you to really get into it, start working or start?
Well, I had a false start in going to Liberia. There was a false start. So when I went in January 2006, I stayed there for 3 months trying to start an internet company. The business partner in the US that would have provided the financing, things fell through. So in March 2006, I returned to the US and went back to work at Sapien. And then in November 2006, I got hired by the UNDP to go and be the country response information system manager for the new office that they were opening to deal with HIV/AIDS, to do the data analytics and roll out the surveillance program for AIDS in the country. So I went back then in November of 2006 to work for UNDP. So when I left here the second time around, I had a job offer to go work for the UN.
So how did you come across that job? Was it through connections or did you stumble upon it?
No, when I came in January, it was an active part of my plan to find something to do from an international organization perspective to go back. So you have feeds for jobs that opens up. So it was the UN, it was USAID, it was any of the international organization. I was constantly on the search for work to do. Even though I was working in the US, I actually was job hunting in Liberia because I didn't want another false start. And mind you, when I went in January, I had shipped my entire house. Wow. All my furniture and everything in my house, I had already shipped to Liberia. So I was living in Atlanta in an empty house, and my heart and everything was in Liberia then.
Okay. So how long did you work with the UN partner before you joined the government, and what was the process like?
I worked with the UN for 6 months, and then I went on to head to be the country manager for Socket Works Liberia. We were doing what we call at the time the Digital Bridge Project, a project that was supported by the International Finance Corporation from the World Bank. It was a $2 million project to digitize all of the universities, give them access to technology. That was before broadband and the internet. So we're using satellites to equip all 5 universities in the country. I stayed as the country manager for Socket Works for a year. Part of that also, we did the first digital solution for the passport in Liberia in terms of forms to eliminate some of the fraud and things that were happening at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs as Socket Works Liberia. We're an IT company that I managed for a year and a month. And then after Socket Works, I went independent. I started my own company, Athena Solutions, meaning it's our time. So I became the first Microsoft certified or Prometric certified test delivery center in the country. And my move to government was accidental. It wasn't something that I sought because I have no political bone in my body, even to this day. But a friend of mine and a former schoolmate, when he returned, asked me to help him set up his organization when he was appointed Minister of Planning and Economic Affairs at Mr. Conan, Amara Conan. And he asked me, I was doing consultancy to help him set up. And he just came and said, I cannot do this all alone. I need your help. I need you to join government and come in and help me deliver on the things that we've been talking about all these years. And that's how I got appointed to government.
If you are just joining us, this is Focus on Liberia. We are broadcasting from Atlanta, Georgia. Our guest tonight is Mr. Sebastian Muah. He has worked with the Ellen Johnson Sirleaf government for some years, pretty close to 9 or 10 years. He's now back in the United States trying to get back into corporate America. And this is our series of engaging people that go to Liberia to stay or people who have worked in Liberia and they are back. And to our viewers across the world, we say welcome to Focus on Liberia. Pretty soon, we're going to open our phone lines if you have questions for Mr. Muah. But before we, so now you joined the government. Talk to me about your experience first. And I know it's those spent over years, but briefly summarize your experience from planning, finance, and then LibTeco.
Well, planning was straightforward. I came from structural organizations that you have like you have in the U.S. in the corporate setting, where you have project management methodologies and things that you do to deliver on what you plan to do. So when I was asked to head the economic policy and planning at the Ministry of Planning, it came naturally to put structure in place. And at that time, the key there was leadership and guiding. Goal was to ensure that we deliver on the PRS-1. And to be able to do that, I put in place, with the support of the minister and the president, a mechanism that the projects that was in PRS-1. After year one, in terms of our work there, we had delivered 18% of what we're supposed to deliver in year one. So it was very dismal. And we quickly turned that around. We reported on it. We didn't politicize it and spin it. We reported on it, and we went to work helping the ministries and agencies to deliver on all that they needed to do. When we left at the end of PRS-1, we had delivered and fast forwarded most of the things that we needed to do until we got to 88% delivery at the end of PRS-1.
When you say PRS, you mean the poverty reduction?
Poverty reduction strategy, one that was part of the requirement for being HIPIC, getting out of the HIPIC program, was to deliver on a PRS-1. Also part of what we deliver at the ministry was what today is supporting the energy infrastructure. We deliver on the Millennium Challenge Corporation program in terms of the country being qualified under the program. We structure that, work with foreign partners to deliver all of that. So today we have the compact, but it all started with the threshold program that my team and I.
All right, it seems like
then
we have
elections came.
Mr. Muah, there's a little slide. Yes. We're having a little technical difficulty. There was a break in your voice.
Yes.
After, yeah. So you can just go over what you just mentioned.
Well, the elections then happened in 2011. From 2011, after we deliver on the PRS-1, we also developed the agenda for transformation and the vision 2030. There were certain things intrinsic in the vision 2030 that would have taken 18 years, from 2012 to 2030. The focus was on the next generation of leaders in Liberia, those that were in first grade at 2012, to develop them to get to college, after college, and years of professional work to take over the leadership of the country. We deliver on the plan of the agenda for transformation. We had the elections. The president saw that the work that we did at the Ministry of Planning and Economic Affairs was impressive. And we got asked to lead at the Ministry of Finance and Development Planning. The Ministry of Finance then asked to lead in the budget department. And we did some good work today that still remains intact and that is driving some of the public financial processes in the government today. After I decided I needed to leave the Ministry of Finance, the president asked me to go and work in terms of privatizing the Liberia Telecommunication Corporation. It was a 24-month agreement that we had that I would do that for 24 months because at this point in time, Dennis, I had 2 kids, and my wife and family were not moving to Liberia. My wife is not a Liberian, and so she wasn't moving to Liberia with the kids. She had been to Liberia several times, and her big gripe was healthcare and other things that we're working on, and she wasn't in a position to leave her job and move. So it was my turn to come back and help with the family. So in 2017, with everything happening, it became the opportune time to leave the stage and make my way back to the U.S.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Muah, what would you say is the legacy that you left behind with the different projects you worked on?
Well, when I mentioned one, when you look at today, Liberia have the MCC, the Millennium Challenge Corporation Compact Program. We got Liberia over the threshold, if you want, because to become a compact, you have to pass the threshold. And the key things for delivering on the threshold when we planned it was girls' primary education, the fiscal policy trade in terms of how we deal with copyrights and all of that. And we also dealt with a key issue that is land rights and access. Today, you have the Land Commission as a result of the work that we did in land rights and access. Today, we have a strong program around girls' primary education completion rate. Females, our young ladies in the country were not finishing elementary school. The rate of boys finishing and girls finishing was disproportionate. And so today, that is not the case. In terms of the work at the Ministry of Finance, we introduced medium-term framework for financial planning, the MTEF, medium-term expenditure framework in the budget cycle. We introduced public sector investment. Before our time at the Ministry of Planning, all government expenditure was recurrent. And it was a matter of year-on-year incremental recurrent expenditure. We introduced project management and public sector investment. Today, because of the public investment, the roads from Monrovia to Banga Ganta paved because we're able to take money from the budget to support that. The hydro, in terms of government making contribution to these projects, we're able to source money in the budget to be able to do that. Doing that, my other legacy is I didn't make too many friends doing that, taking money and putting it into things that will show after we leave. But today, you will see that the port of Monrovia, we're able to dredge that port. You will see that in terms of the HFO, we paid, the government of Liberia paid $30 million that was able to pull away from recurring expenditure to get 24 megawatts of electricity. So many of the things today that we don't go around putting our names on it because it was part of our work. It was our TOR to deliver on that. You don't expect to get accolades and praise for doing what it is you're paid to do. So those are just some highlights of some of the things that today you will go and see in the country, but it all started with what we did.
All right. And we are having questions on Facebook already, Mr. Muah.
Shoot, I'm not on Facebook right now.
Okay, no, I'll read you the question. Mr. Robert F. Colley is asking, I know you mentioned that briefly. He's saying, why aren't you working with the current government where help seems much needed, but you are returning? So re-emphasize, why are you returning instead of staying to help the current government? That's what Roberto is asking.
It's a valid question, but the fact of the matter is there's a beginning and end to everything that you do. Most of the folks in the current government, including the current Minister of Finance, will work together. He was a junior member of our team there, so he picked up some of the things that that we did to get to where keeping the exchange rate fixed. All of these things, they're not new. There are a lot of professional people. One of the legacy, I didn't mention it, was how many young people got developed in the process in terms of professional experience, in terms of being sent abroad for them to get graduate degrees that are now, and they went to real good schools overseas, from Harvard to Duke, to schools in the UK. They are back home. They are there. So it's not like these people are not on the ground. It doesn't take a Sebastian Muah or an Amara Conan or James Colley to be there to keep the country moving. The country will continue to move. So even though the question is a valid question, but priorities change on an individual level. We're still connected to Liberia and what's happening there. We're still giving our advice behind the scene, but it's not our time to be on the stage. We were there for almost 12 years, like Dennis said. After 12 years, you need new actors.
Okay.
Mr. Muah, did you leave? I know you started businesses before joining the government. Did you leave any business behind? Do you still have things running, or?
No, right now I do not have any organization. The good thing about the way I structure my engagement is I have a company in the U.S. My company in the U.S. Is still my company in the U.S. When I came back, I just had to engage the Secretary of State, whatever the business process, and get current with Athena Solution. So it was formed in the U.S. So there is no company in Liberia right now that I run. Hopefully one day soon we'll engage on that front, because the entrepreneurial spirit is still in my blood to do something. But for now, it's family is recalibrating and getting adjusted in the corporate America to trying to get back in the queue, to get back to where I was when I left before.
We will soon get, there's a question on from our guest, but before that, from Mr. Emmerich Beam Nicole. But before I ask that, I just want you to tell me how is it been since you returned? How are you getting back into the system, and what is it like? How are you doing?
It's America is predictable and it's unpredictable. It's predictable in terms of understanding that there's always a queue. And when you leave the queue and you get back, you don't cut the line. You get back in the queue and you work hard to get to where you are. When I left, most of the skill set that I had from being educated in the US and my experience working in corporate America, I didn't discard those skills. So when I came back in 2017, the first thing I did as part of getting back into the queue was all of my experience in project management, the PRS-1, Agenda for Transformation, the MTEF project, everything I learned in Liberia, establishing a PMO office at the Ministry of Finance. When I came back, I went straight ahead and took the project management professional exam. Just to test that I didn't forget anything. After doing that, passing that exam successfully, started to do some project work with my company Athena from time to time. And then I got back in school. because I wanted to do data science, become a data scientist. So I got back in school at Villanova University and also at Harvard University. That was part of my plan of getting back into corporate America. And then I've been working in that space. I've been doing analytics in Clara Pharmacia, pharmaceutical, retail. We deal with a lot of data, and I enjoy doing that. So getting back into the mainstream America was a matter of a little readjustment, knowing where to start, knowing where your strengths are in terms of what to take on, not trying to take on everything at once, and just staying focused. That is critical in terms of readjusting back in the U.S. The other thing about readjusting in the U.S. is if you leave America, do not damage your credit. America is cash, U.S. is credit. If you keep that intact, you can readjust on the financial level in the U.S. when you get back. But all of that, I kept in the back of my head, and we're moving along.
All right. So how are you paying for Harvard and Villanova? I know they should be pretty expensive.
Loan.
Oh, okay.
That's the reason credit is good.
All right.
If you get good credit, you can take loan.
There's a question here from Mr. Emmerich Nicole. He said he came in late, but he has a question. He said, my question has to do with the scandal of embezzlement that you were alleged to have been involved in. What can you say about being a partner in a casino business in Central African Republic? Did you embezzle money? Are you a stakeholder in any casino in the Central African Republic? And why were you let go of your job?
Well, first of all, no, I don't own a casino in Central African Republic. I wish I had a lot of money where I don't have to take loan, I don't have to pay mortgage, and I don't have to pay car note. But the reality is, I'm doing all of those things. I do not own any casino. The money that I earn in Liberia, I earn fair and square from pay. Now, I wasn't let go of my job. I actually resigned. The president and I had a conversation, and like I said before, I had a 24-month engagement with the president to do what I needed to do, which was to divest the Liberia Telecommunication Company. Our first effort at divesting Liptelco in Liberia, it became political in terms of creating value for Liptelco to sell Liptelco off. We wanted to acquire Novaphone, and there was a buyer that the same Orange that was looking at that acquire Celcom. They were looking at an entire package. So we're talking to people to create a package with Liptelco being part of that. It became political. That one, I couldn't deliver on it. The 24 months have passed. I have already had that discussion with the president to leave. And when the scandal came about, like what a person's supposed to do in those situations is leave the position and then submit yourself to whatever the legal process is to exonerate yourself. I did that. I resigned from the position so there will be no conflict. I submitted all of my financial information from 2012 until the time I left. 5 years worth of my bank statement from America, from Liberia, from every place to the Liberia LACC, anti-corruption folks. I submitted myself to the Ministry of Justice. All of that to be the scanner and also be available to answer any question that's being had. I've gone to Liberia multiple times. Unlike the same news and scanner said, I fled the country like Ellen Cochran, and I took money. I've been to Liberia. I've worked in sub offices. When I go there, people let me the office space for me to check email and stuff. Even your host met me in Liberia on his recent travel. We were there together. So I have not run away. There is no scandal. I've submitted myself. It's incumbent on the government and everybody that says I have these things to come and show me otherwise. That hasn't happened. The case has not. There is no case to be brought forward. So to answer that question, I don't own casino. I'm back in America working like every other person, and hopefully one day whatever needs to happen will happen. I'm waiting for the government on time in the process to say what it is. But my conscience is clear, and I'm living and trying to make life on this side now.
Thank you. Amos Opi Nuta is asking about your citizenship. He said, are you an American? If yes, did you tell the truth to the Liberian people before you get employed? I don't know what that is, but
well, I don't think that question is material. Not to discount the question, because my citizenship has nothing to do with the work I do. Granted, I'm not an American, but even if I were an American, I am still a Liberian. I still have Liberian passport, and I would have told anybody who I am, because the what Liberia needs is the capacity and the people that can deliver honestly for the country. This debate, I think, is a side issue. To the questioner, is a side issue. It's a smoke screen for solving the real problem in Liberia. Citizenship is not an issue. If you start to deal with that, you will unemploy the entire hierarchy of your government today. So don't ask those of us who are not citizens that question. Let me say it in Liberian English.
All right. So now we have a new government in place. There are other questions here relating to, now we have a new government in place, and you've been there, done that. What is your advice to those first taken after you in at the finance ministry, also at Lipteco and other parts of the Liberian government?
Well, government work in Liberia is the most, if you're doing the work to change the lives of the people in Liberia, is the most gruesome, demanding work that you will do. For the time that I was in Liberia working, the amount of time that I put into work was more than the time I ever put into working in the US. But it takes discipline. You cannot change anything in Liberia in a short period of time. Do not set unrealistic expectations. Build on what you inherited. Do not start from the beginning. Time is continuous. Whatever is left with you is where you start off. The minute you start from the beginning, you create a whole new variable, a whole new demand. And from my own project management experience, it's like scope creep. You keep adding new scope, the project will never end. It will be a continuous project. And even though Liberia is a project, each new scope should be something that adds to the value of the Liberian people. That's my advice for them. Don't try to do everything wholesale. You cannot solve Liberia problem wholesale. You have to be targeted. You can develop all 15 counties at once. When we did the growth corridor study that I led, we targeted where the most impact will happen, where the most people live, so that it will permeate from that point to the rest of the country. But if you try to do everything wholesale, definitely you will not be successful. That would be my advice. And be humble about what you can do.
Okay, so Mr. Muah, you mentioned something like scope creep. So what other type of issues did you meet regularly in projects that you feel may be kind of unique to working in Liberia?
Liberia itself is a unique experiment. we're no, seriously. And the thing about this thing, every Liberian knows how unique we are and how peculiar we are. We know that. So being direct, most of the time we when people are direct with us, we get offended. Our challenge now in terms of doing things that we need to do in Liberia is finding the committed few. That is a difficult thing. Most of us tend to focus on ourselves in terms of doing the public sector and public service. We focus on getting what we can get because we treat Liberia like there is no tomorrow. So we want to do everything that we can do to use the Liberian word to empower ourselves and not to empower everyone around us. And when you do that, you are not empowered. You who individually empowering yourself, you are not empowered, because if everything is falling around you, you will fall as the result of that. So that is one of the challenges of being in Liberia, working in Liberia. The other thing is we have to be, we know what the problem is, but we choose to conceal it, and we're not true to ourselves. There's an issue of loyalty also as part of who we are. An issue of we don't listen to ourselves or our own experts, but we will listen to other experts, people who don't have context of the situation in Liberia. We'll listen to them rather than people who have lived the situation in Liberia. So these are the nuances in terms of how difficult it is for public officials and public policy to be made in the country, because we try to please everyone at once. Everyone must have a voice at once, and that is not practical.
We still have a few more questions on Facebook, and a couple of them still have to do with the alleged casino scandal.
Yeah,
but Kula is even being direct about he say, Sebastian Muah, you guys did some serious corruption in that country. Tell us what you and Robert Salih did with the casino you were invested in. I know you mentioned that before, maybe Baton came late, so Dr. Kula is asking about the same casino issue. And specifically you and Robert Salih, he says.
It is amazing how people form perceptions about what it is. I have never, other than 2011 election when we're campaigning, running to SKD, sat in any place with Robert Salih. That's the first thing. You take me today and show me to Robert Salil, he doesn't even know me. So the insinuation or the link with Robert Salil is absurd. And I go back to what I said before. I don't own a casino. If I own a casino, you will know. But I'm here working in a regular place. If I have money, frankly speaking, that will come from an income, casino or no casino, I will not be working. No human being wants to work. So I don't own a casino. Like I said earlier, I submitted all my financial information, 5 years, to the Liberia Anti-Corruption Commission. They have it. I've gone to Liberia last year after I left, when people were giving fake news that I fled the country. I went to Liberia 4 times last year and 1 time this year. If anything was out for people to get me, I was guilty of anything, I had not complied with whatever was required by the law, then I wouldn't be sitting in this seat today. But I'm here today because all of what I should have complied with is done. If you have questions about any allegation against me in terms of the veracity of that allegation, it would be great. Go to the Liberia Anti-Corruption people. Go to the Ministry of Justice. Ask them for record. There's an open information, right, freedom of information that exists in the country. Please go there, ask for all my information. They will make it available to you. Before you say, I'm associated with someone I haven't met but once in my life.
And Zoante Zinho is still asking, say, have you been cleared by the Liberian government after all the scrutiny? I understand you are saying this is in process.
No, it's for them to do. I've given everything. There is no court case. There is nothing. The anti-corruption folks, the only thing they're supposed to give me, because there is no case on this whole casino stuff, right? The only thing when I submitted my asset declaration, the only thing they're supposed to give me is my exit. When you start government, you say what you own. When you leave government, you say what it is you own with documentation. I provided that to the anti-corruption folks. So the only thing that they're supposed to give me is my exit clearance. If there's a criminal case for all of the allegations, there will be a court date, a charge, and everything. The fact that I provided all these things and there is nothing in to charge me with, because there is nothing there. I have not been charged with anything. So if you're not charged, how will you be exonerated? It's the media that has charged me. It's not the government of Liberia. Let's distinguish between the two, my people.
Okay. Good. And again, returning, there are still questions about you coming back. You mentioned to me, I get it. It says, so they look at it as you walking away after taking from the government for like 10 years working. Now you have returned. So some of our viewers are saying it that you walk away from Liberia. Any comment?
No, I didn't walk away. The opportunity and experience to be part of something is only for a while. Everything has a beginning and an end. It's almost like a Broadway play. You're on the stage, you go through the play. When you get to the end of the play, you leave the stage. If you don't leave the stage, they will boo you off the stage. Yeah. Because people have a threshold for how much they can deal with doing the same thing over and over. The country needed a change. The country made the change. They didn't make a change for Sebastian to hang around and say he want government job. When I left in 2006 to go to Liberia, I still got my W-2. I know what I was earning. I know what opportunity cost I had to deal with being in Liberia for that period of time. I come back, I had to start pretty close to the beginning of the line to work my way back up. Had I been around here for the last 10 years, the income loss that I know the opportunity cost in terms of income and growth that I left behind wouldn't have been at this stage. But nothing is lost. I feel good about having the opportunity to be in Liberia, work in Liberia, support the people and the government of Liberia, and walk away knowing that there are certain things that I know when I go to Liberia and see it was our making in terms of negotiation. However people perceive it. You go to Liberia today, you see a new airport. For that EU money to come through, we had to negotiate when we were at the Ministry of Finance, leading to agreement on that. For the roads to come through, we had to, as young people, at the time I joined the government, I just turned 39, 40 years old when I joined the government. Relatively young to be in charge of $565 million on an annual basis and tell people what to prioritize to spend to better the lives of the Liberian people. No regret there, Dennis, no regret. But I'm back on this side. It's a new chapter. It's a new play. It's a new path that I'm taking now. It doesn't mean Liberia is not always on my mind. We as Liberians, anytime we sit to have a conversation, because of the passion in how we feel about the country, we always talk about Liberia. Right. One way or the other, we always talk about it. And that's part of this discussion. We need to do that more often, but then sometimes we need to act. My talk, when I used to talk and I was living in Atlanta, it became action. I got on the plane, I packed my house, and I went the first time without a job.
Right. And that's what most of us, that's what we look forward to have the opportunity to return and contribute. So I don't see it as anything that anyone needs to apologize for. Sando Kande is asking if you were targeted, because he said there are many people in government and who provided everything to the LCC. However, out of the employees in government, why were you the only one targeted? There must be something. The allegation didn't just come from the blue. That's Sando Kane.
No, I wasn't targeted. I'm not a politician. I wasn't targeted. Whether it's good or bad, I pride myself in being a straight talker and a straight shooter. I don't bite my tongue, and I talk whatever it is. If you're not supposed to get resources from the government, in Liberian parlance, I will mean you with the resources, and you will make enemies. You will make people unhappy who feel that they're entitled to the Liberian people money. And when you do that a whole lot in a society where there is a huge dependence syndrome, you don't make a lot of friends. And I didn't expect anything less than what it is. In terms of it was a matter of time before you will be put in a compromise situation where people will go at you. Everybody, if you can go back, go read the letters back and forth when the scandal was going on with Rodney. It came across, everybody in the response, go read it. They said I was arrogant. That was my problem. The whole country thinks I'm arrogant because I said no when you want misuse the government money. So I'm happy I was arrogant. I'm happy for whatever and I ended up doing. But I didn't lose anything. I didn't lose my integrity. I didn't lose my experience. I didn't lose all of that. That's the reason I can come back here and go to work the next day, because I didn't lose any of the things that people will lose if you're not a professional person.
All right. I think we have dealt that. I don't want you to, for the discussion to sound like we are trying to prosecute you for going to Liberia.
No, but I told you, Dennis, I said everything goes. I know that in Liberia, have perception gets formed, and I wanted everything. I knew people would ask on casino. I knew people would ask about corruption in the place. Everything is about perception and how news go. But I'm free to go and come from Liberia. There is no warrant for me. There's no charge against me, and I'm good. I'm happy for the things we did. Like I said, I would encourage Liberians who got the thick skin, who are committed to go and help do work, or to organize on this side. I mean, we know all the solutions to our problems, but we only talk it. We don't act it. It will be good. Sometimes we leave the talking and go more to action. We'll leave the analysis and go more to delivery.
So, Mr. Muah, you make a great point. So there are a lot of Liberians in the diaspora who wish to go home, but have no clue as to where to start or how to start. What would their first step be? If you were talking right now to someone who is like, I want to go home, what do I need to do? What would you tell them?
Yeah, don't just want to go home. That's the first thing I would say, because most of the time I have friends who, when I was there, will come and it's all about the fun. The first time you go there, everything seems free. You can drink and drive. You can do everything that you cannot do in the U.S. Under a strong legal rule of law system. You seem like you can do it. So you feel like, oh, there's freedom here. I need to exploit it. Mm-hmm. So then you jump on plane and you want to go to Liberia. Don't just want to go. You should be aware of who you are, what your strengths are, how you think you can contribute to Liberia. And you should also have a plan. What if it doesn't work? A plan B. There are innovative ways to do things in Liberia. And the guy who asked about citizenship, for Liberians who are American, you don't got to go to work for the government of Liberia. You said give American companies, minority companies, work to do in Liberia, right from Washington, D.C. While Liberians who are professional doctors, high degree of experience in this place, can form an international development company. But we allow 28-year-old, 25-year-old college students for them to form together and go do the work that we who were born there, or we who have our ancestry in Liberia, we can form company because, again, maybe we don't want to work. So that's a great opportunity. Today, the country needs capacity. We complain about the pay. When you want to go back, you want to see how much pay you can make. When I work for government, I make $1,350 as deputy minister for planning. That was a big pay cut from my UN pay. That was even a bigger pay cut from my second work country manager, where they pay for my house and everything. But I didn't go in the government to say I will break the bank and make money. I knew what my costs were. And I knew what fulfillment I would get out of it. So you should be ready to commit when you go in Liberia to say you want to do something, that whatever you do, you should feel fulfilled from it. If you're not going to be fulfilled from it, you will come back to the US, or you will leave feeling dejected, feeling unaccomplished, and feeling that you wasted your time. You don't want to come out of the situation feeling that way. So I will advise, know what you want to do, and then form a plan. Don't just rush into it. Look at all of the options out there. There's a DevEx. If you're a professional person and you look for a job, but don't look for a job in the government, if you ask me.
All right.
Go ahead.
So you mentioned, not necessarily looking for a job in the government, but let's say someone wants to go and open a business. We know here in the U.S., if you want to start a business, you can start at the Department of State in your state, form a corporation or sole proprietorship. There are steps, and we can go online and we can look that up and we can figure out what to do, where to go. There are forms, there are departments and offices. We have that structure here. Sometimes I think it's a little discouraging going to Liberia to say, okay, I'm going to start a business. What is your advice there?
Well, I think some of that process has been streamlined in terms of starting a business. There's as part of this entire MCC doing business with the IFC, we streamline some of the processes around that. So you should be able to get your business registered within 48 hours. But getting the business registered, that's one step. Mm-hmm. Getting the business operational and doing what it is for you to generate income is a whole new step, that set of steps that you have to take. First, you have to identify the right kinds of people that will help you manage the business. And if you're going to be in and out of Liberia in the initial stage, you have to find someone overly trustworthy with the professional acumen to be able to manage the business. You have to be able to do that. And it takes time. But initially, you probably have to commit at least between 12 to 18 months if you want to do a business being on the ground. You have to have enough resources just in case the business in terms of cash flow is not moving as you expect. So you have cash flow to sustain yourself and the operations of the business. So it's a huge investment. If you're coming from abroad, you have to make a significant investment to open a business. When I went in 2006 with my business, I tapped into my 401k and I got generators. I took my cars. I took everything that I needed to start the business. I took it in a container, a 40-foot container. Mm-hmm. You have to be ready to do that with the resources. And I took at least 6 months worth of resources to sustain myself while there for the time that I went initially, before I even got UN job the second time around. So you have to be ready to do that. If you can do it
before you had a family, right?
One thing, if you can do it alone, form partnership on this side before you leave. Mm-hmm. So you can tag team. Those who want to do that, you need to be able to form trusted partnership to do that. But the opportunity is there to help. There are a lot of things you can do from scratch that you take for granted in the U.S. or other places that doesn't exist in Liberia. So you have a free open space to do a lot of things. But again, it takes time.
Okay. Final question on this whole kind of thing. First of all, Henry Brisbane, is not all questions coming at you. Henry Brisbane say, I love this guy. So you got some love here from our viewers, Sebastian.
Thank you, Henry. I can tell the Liberian man.
All right. One final question on the whole scandal thing is, and the question is coming from, let me see, but is this, will you be able to submit yourself to an audit if the government of like the current government so require?
Please, when I left Liptelco, we had an audit. They had an audit when I resigned. I wasn't even overseeing the process. People don't understand. In a professional situation, if you're a professional person, you take all of the steps that will exonerate you so there can be no conflict. When I left Liptelco, when I resigned, the president had an audit. The internal audit went to look at the entire Liptelco system. I got letters that I wrote GSC for them to come do audit. On the Ministry of Finance, GSC audited Ministry of Finance all the time, even when I left in 2014. So every place I've been, the first thing we do is we audit before you take your seat. You audit after you leave the seat. So yes, there has been audit. That's the reason I can talk freely.
All right, and you are talking freely tonight. That question came from Macaulay.
Yeah.
Again, if you are joining us, this is Focus on Liberia. We are broadcasting from Atlanta, Georgia. We are discussing with Mr. Sebastian Muah. He has worked with the government of Liberia under President Ellen Johnson Sirleaf for almost 10 years. He's back in the United States and sharing his experience. Now we have a new government in place. Okay, there was a question here about your assessment of the Pro-Po agenda or the new government for the past 6 months. You've been there, done that.
I think right now it's early, and as a straight shooter, I think it's early. And the thing is, if you come, the country had a lot of in terms of the government, or in terms of the transfer of government and how things will be. The country wanted change. There's a cost around all of that. Right now, it's too early. Beginning July 1st, as a former government person that knows the public financial process, they inherited the leftover budget from the previous year that ends June 30th. So nothing in that previous budget in terms of managing it, you will attribute that. Nothing in it was their priority. They tried within the 150 days to say, yes, what we will deliver in that within whatever means. It happens. But beginning July 1st, when the new budget is approved, it makes sense then for you to start looking critically at the new government in terms of delivery. How are they delivering on those things that they prioritize in the budget that they submitted? They own that budget. It is theirs. It is their priorities. It is everything that they will have to do. So to at this point, Dennis, I cannot say they're making progress or they're not making progress. It's just that a lot of things has happened in the country in terms of public policy that is challenging for the country. We know there are things that are uncontrollable. You could tweak it, like the exchange rate, or how with that. But you have capable people. That not everyone from the previous government left. The people at the central bank are the same people. Most of the technocrats at the Ministry of Finance, they're some of the same people. Half of the people at the ministry, especially in mine, when I was at finance, the budget department, almost everyone in the budget department were people that worked for me when I was there. The current budget minister was the senior person in the department reporting to me. The assistant budget minister there today, Jesse, he was one of the directors in the department. So you have knowledge still behind. And I think they will adjust, but start calibrating beginning July 1st in terms of going forward, Dennis.
Mr. Muah, in all fairness, you know, in Liberia, they say you can tell a dog that will hunt from the way it's sitting by the fire. The way the proper government is by the fire. The way the proper government is sitting, based on your experience, what can you predict?
When you say sitting, how you mean the way they're sitting?
The way they have started to work.
Well, the only thing I see is over-promising in terms of what to deliver with the resources. There was my last time at the Ministry of Finance when I was in the real government side, the country needed $2 billion a year to meet all of the demand for doing project, paying people in terms of budget. We needed $2 billion to build all of the infrastructure that demand per year. You get $565 million when your need is $2 billion. Same thing as today. The need has not gone down. So instead of keeping the expectation measured, I think we've exploded the expectation beyond what even the people voted for. They voted for change, but they didn't vote for some of the promises. And if you overpromise and you underdeliver, you're a failure. If you promise moderately or underpromise and overdeliver, you're a success. I think that my advice would be to balance that. Sitting by that fire and promising a whole lot, it could come back to backfire. In the first 150 days, for example, if you promise move, it could be problematic. So my advice, as somebody who's been there, oversaw cuts in the budget to meet real expenditure. Don't overpromise. I think that's the fault the new government have today. The excitement and the euphoria of taking over has led to overpromising a whole lot.
All right. So from your experience now, and we are winding this down, we see that, merely the political side where there are changes and there's so much expectation, and then the government of the day does not meet our expectation, and we see that revolving cycle. What do you think is Liberia's problem and how to solve it based on your experience? What's our issues?
That would take a whole another hour to go to what the issues are, because our issues become very subjective. But just from my perspective, in terms of what we need to focus on, I will not look at it as being issues, but what we need to focus on, we need to begin to look at the low-hanging fruit. When I was part of the team that drafted the agenda for transformation, which is still the development agenda, I hope, even though we have pro-poor agenda being formulated, that agenda should have kicked off, like I said earlier. 2012, kicking off the next agenda is to focus on the next generation. Then it's between any of us at our generation, we're not going to see the transformation of Liberia in our lifetime. The people who will change Liberia are those that are after us, those that are in elementary schools today. Can we focus on getting them the right kinds of tools in the school? When I was at Liptako, guess what I tried to do? To put computer lab in every public school. People say I was showing up by putting computer lab. Tubman High, the best government school in the country, now have a fiber optics and computer lab there. In Grand Cess, the school in Grand Cess, July 26th, has a computer lab generator there. New Jersey, in the poorest of poor community, we need to give, Liberian kids are smart. We all came from poverty. You know where you came from. I know where I came from. We're opportune to go to Monrovia College. Not because we're rich. Some of us got scholarship to MC. But we came out okay. Liberian kids, we need to invest in education significantly. People will ask me why EJS time, Ellen Johnson time, you guys didn't do. We did some of that. We did some of that, but we're not fully structured. When we had the right person that wanted to change the way we look at education, we complained. We said we're bringing foreign people into the country to do education. But we will leave the country and come to America to get education. But when somebody comes to Liberia to teach, if the foreigner, then it's a problem. You see the dichotomy in how we look at education. We got a subjective way of looking at how we must do development. So education will be critical if we will change. If we'll be grandparents looking back at the transformation that takes place, it's going to happen from those kids today that are in elementary school. Then we need to focus on healthcare. Those social services, they are not negotiable if we need to transform how we do things. That would be my parting advice to the new folk. Don't give things out freely. Don't do socialism, if you want to call it that. So you will encourage the dependency syndrome. Empower people by making sure the kids go to school and are exposed to technology and are exposed to information.
All right, we will soon be drawing down the curtains. There are still lots of questions on Facebook. I'm going to share the video with you so that you can respond to some of these questions that we don't have time for during this broadcast. But one question, again, most of the people that go to Liberia to work are people who decide on them, upon themselves, say, right, it's time for me to go. Last week, we had a guest who has just returned to Liberia, hoping to have a job with the current government. But for most people, sometimes the urge is not even there. Don't you think government can be intentional about recruiting from the diaspora, especially when you were there? Government coming with, say, well, this is the issue that we have. This is the need. And so let's go out and get people to fill this need, especially from the diaspora. Don't you think that would be a good thing to do?
Absolutely. But it has its pros and cons, right? Okay. What level do you structure this the program, such a program? When President Sirleaf took over in 2006, she had support from George Soros, and they have the Liberia Emergency Capacity Building Support Program that was structured to support people that were senior ministers in the government. To be able to do any similar program and target the expertise, you first have to extricate yourself from the government. The current public sector has to remove itself from it and make the program solely competitive, project oriented, so that when people come, they're doing stuff. Other people are doing this. The international organizations that work in Liberia that do the same thing to support the government, they're doing it based on projects. You have a specific task that you're going to do. You're accountable. So you're not a government or employee per se, where you think that, oh, okay, government comes and government goes, so I'll just be hanging around and I don't have to move. If the government is going to put resources aside to do that, it must have a clear program and plan that it needs to execute on. And then bring the right people to do it, pay them, and let them go. But then you have to balance. You have to balance, because some of this whole debate on dual citizenship, people from America, you still have the people from diaspora and other places. You will still have to deal with that if you don't open it up to make it competitive. Then you have an affirmative action kind of structure that, oh, if you do this many people from America, you must do this many people from Liberia, who either side may or may not be qualified. But you got to take the who know you out of the equation. And I don't know how we can effectively do that other than sourcing it out to an international person or organization, just like we're trying to do the schools, the international school. Give it to international people, let them come do it. They don't know anybody. They don't have any political affiliation. If you can do stuff like that without grumble and debate or unnecessary debate, I think you can get the best Liberians from across the world. I mean, we got sharp people around.
I know. Henry Tamakoli is asking about the war crime court or war crime tribunal, about your opinion. He said 90% of Liberians in the diaspora, I don't know where that statistic comes from, but he said 90% of Liberians in the diaspora are demanding justice for innocent people that were killed during the Civil War, and also economic crimes court to be established in Liberia. What's your opinion?
Well, Liberia decided in the name of peace, and that's who we are. To a certain degree, we hard on some places, and then we try to Liberian English mango in some other places. The idea of war crime and everything else was presented before. We opted for this whole, I'm not too on the political side, but the peace and reconciliation, something we opted for.
Truth and Reconciliation Committee.
We opted for truth and reconciliation, that we will do what it is, because we were afraid, and quite rightly so, that had we gone the other way, perhaps the conflict will continue, because many of these people had, that we talked about, had followers. So we went the other way. By going the other way, we turned the blind eye for 12 years, not 12, you add Julie Bryan, for 15 years, we turned our eyes the other way. After 15 years, you technically almost gone a decade and a half, and you're saying, okay, let's go back and retrofit everything that happened before. First of all, our country, we challenge in terms of information and fact. Like you today, you're saying 90%. Someone could come and say, I feel it's 200% of this. We don't have the kind of information necessary to do some of the conviction that will be required. The second thing is, we don't have the money. You have to make a strong choice between prosecuting a lot of people, and we most of us will believe we know everybody who are part in the world, and they're walking every day next to us. True, but since we agree reconciliation, then leave reconciliation. But if we go after that, we have to try to find evidence. It costs money to do these things. When I was even a little bit, just some of the smaller cases that we try to do. For example, Ellen Cochran, other people who fled the country, and to bring them back. It cost hundreds of thousands of dollars just to process one individual, which you're not guaranteed that you'll win the case, because they will have their own argument. I think it will be best for us to continue down the reconciliation path and do that. In the case of economic crime, yes, I support that highly. You see, the rule of law is something that is critical for the country. we're unable to do some of these things that people are advocating. And the question, valid question in terms of what options are out there. But when we go to do elections, we don't talk about these issues. We don't raise these as the pertinent things for us to make decisions who we put in office. We look at personality. Do I like this person or not? It was the same. Do I like this person or not? We opted for peace and truth and reconciliation and not war crime code. We get to the economic crime situation. It's the same personal engagement that we look at and we say, you know what, if we do this economic crime code, it's like Jesus in the Bible toward the first tomb. We got a parable in Liberia where they say, or saying, not parable per se, saying that when you haul grass or tree, it will haul bush and everything. You open the court, which is a good thing. It will have an impact, but it's not the decision of me. It's the government decision. It's the people who elect the government decision. If you want these things, make sure that those who you elect to office are advocate and are people who want these things to happen. Right. But if you elect somebody who doesn't care for it, you're not going to get it. So next time, anytime you elect, you go to the polls, elect on issues.
Right. Okay. So for TRC, because it's reconciliation, so those who allegedly wrong us should be the one to come and say, I'm sorry, but they're not doing it. I don't know what we're going to do about that. But Augustus,
that's a valid point.
Augustus Yamba Bondo say the choice TRC was a manipulated choice. His words. Now that the nation is able to decide through referendum, do you think that the bulk of the Liberians will opt for TRC? I thought we already did.
The idea of referendum is a good thing. Good thing, Dennis. You did the Liberian civics book. I think most people. This is not a plug for your book, but most people need to begin to.
You can pitch in for the book.
Most people need to read and understand how the political and the civic structure is in the country. For you to be able to get a referendum, the legislature, the representative of the people, must pass overwhelmingly to put it on the ballot for you to vote on it. Right. The people, you got people in the legislature today that will fall in the category of going to that court if they go the prosecutorial route. So right. Again, there has to be a fundamental change in the political ecosystem in the country for you to be able to see the advocacy that we all are professing for it to come to reality. We cannot be electing the same caliber of people, not that they're bad people per se, but what the interests are right, is not your interest. It's not your interest. You elect somebody who is not advocating on your behalf, and you want them to advocate on your behalf when they get there. It's not going to happen. So just be wise the next time.
The Professor PLO Lumumba say, you go to the showroom, there's a lot of cars. You take a tutu, when you bring it home, you want it to perform like a Mercedes.
Yeah, that's a good analogy.
Right. So Augusta Yambo also is asking, he says, so what happened to the $13 million from I thought we were ending, but the questions keep coming. So bear with us. What happened to the $13 million from the EU for healthcare?
That's a good question. And if you notice this year, the new government, when they were in Brussels, they just signed additional funding for, I think, health and education. If the euro, the premise behind that statement is if the European money that they said they gave that, again, the newspaper said was taken. If that money was taken, EU will not be putting money into the Liberian government budget. The $13 million is money that came, it was budgeted and was expended through the budget. Ministry of Health got money from there. The problem with the $13 million that it became a political issue and not a criminal issue was the Minister of Health at the time wanted the entire $13 million to go to the Ministry of Health. I, as the budget minister, said the $13 million was supposed to go to the health sector because the health sector is what the Europeans were supporting. So part of that money went to the Ganta Hospital. Part of that money went to JFK. And because the minister then was angry that he did not get all of the money just to the Ministry of Health, people went to a newspaper. I didn't get the $13 million that the Europeans sent. Europeans didn't write check and say, here's a check to go deliver to the Ministry of Health. They say, yeah, $13 million to put in the budget. So our budget that year was $42 million, and you add 13 to it, it became $565 million. That's how we have $565 million budget. So the money was received into the government consolidated account just like a revenue, and was disbursed from the government account like revenue. Nobody could write any $13 million check, but it's understanding and how the news people project information to us being vulnerable. Today, EU continues to provide direct budget support like they did with the $13 million when we were at the Ministry of Finance. Today, they continue to do that because they understand we strengthen the PFM system, that they could put the money directly through the budget.
All right. Well, this question is from Dave Ja. That's my brother, so I'm going to read it. David is saying, what are the fundamentals of the Liberian economy and financial systems? What step did your ministry take to rid the country of the dependency syndrome and foreign aid?
Well, after PRS 1, aid began to go down. There was the financial crisis of 2012 that even affected the US and the world over. So everyone they were cutting down aid. So today, aid during 2006 to 2011 is not the same amount of aid that the government get. Most of what the government has gotten post 2011 has been to sweeten the pot in terms of the World Bank, the IMF, and other international organizations that we engage, is a loan with a grant component. So it's like you go to buy the house and they want the interest rate to be 1%. You say, no, I want the interest rate to be 0.05%. So instead of them giving you a 0.05% interest rate, they say, okay, I will give you cash back. So we got grant along with the loan just to do that. So it was a balance. That's how most of the work in the country is going. The fundamentals of the economy or the public finance system, what we did, I don't know if it's being done today. First of all, we only spend what money we collected in revenue. So when you will hear that, under Minister Conner, the team, there was budget shortfall. No, there was never budget shortfall because you're spending exactly what you have. The Liberian government does not operate on a deficit budget. Deficit means you're crediting. And under the IMF program, you cannot credit to do recurrent expenditure. You can only credit money to build roads and infrastructure. So we couldn't borrow. So in the case of the foreign exchange and public expenditure, when we realized there were a lot of Liberian dollars on the market, we introduced the treasury bills with the commercial banks in the country, in which we as the government, when we receive money in US, we will buy off in the treasury bill. We will take money, Liberian dollar, off the market. So we created scarcity for Liberian dollar to balance off the demand and supply of the dollar. So the treasury bill will mop up the Liberian dollar from the economy, and then we will just focus on spending what we had. On top of that, during that period, though, it was not only that, you had unmill in the country in terms of foreign exchange coming into the country, dealing with the monetary policy of the country. So when you have that situation in place, some foreign exchange from unmill and the other international actors that were in the country, you'll be able to keep a stable exchange rate. Today, you don't have unmill. You have a rate almost approaching 147. When we left the Ministry of Finance, it was about 68 or so to a dollar. It has more than doubled since that time, because some of the sources of foreign exchange has gone away. Overspending on the budget. We never overspent on the budget during the time I was at the Ministry of Finance. Whenever there was a reprioritization of the budget, I would go to the next person and say, we don't have money to spend for your project because the money is going to the other place. The easiest way to tell them is, we have a budget shortfall. So that's the term they understood. But the reality was, we're taking your money and there's a new priority that we're going to put the money on.
All right, we're about to draw down the curtains. I will, any final question from my co-host?
If you had the opportunity, well, okay, so let me trace back. I understand you returned because you do have a priority with your family. You have a responsibility to your family to help your wife raise your children. Do you see yourself being able to return anytime in the future?
When you did return, what do you mean?
Well, to return
and
to
live?
work. Yes, to return to work and live.
No, it's going to be a while. I have plans to return, but it'll be over time. Just like I advised earlier, that you must have all of the resources in place for you to be able to go and sustain yourself. I'm in that process. I have to work some, save some, and then be able to go back and start again. Get in line. I know how to get in line. This line business. I know how to go Liberia and stay in line. I know how to come America and stay in line. Right now, in the American line, maybe 5 to 10 years from now, or when I get the software I'm developing that works in Liberia. As you can see, I have all this software stuff behind me. When I get that going, then probably I'll move. I could move earlier if there's demand for the technology that I'm putting in place to help solve some of these problems in the education and health. Once I get that going, then perhaps I will go sooner. But for now, I have no immediate plan to go and stay. I have plans to go and visit, and that will be sometime this year.
All right. One of our fans, one of our viewers who joined is my friend from Minnesota, Mohammed Dukle. He had a tragic situation. I just want to recognize that and give a shout out to him. I'm so excited that he's online. He was assaulted by a student and he was in a critical condition in the hospital.
Oh, that's the guy that got
right.
attacked.
So, attacked by the student, yeah, on his job. So Duke, if you are listening, I'm we are so excited here at FOL to see you online, and hope that we can talk to you soon. We also have some things happening in our community. There was a lady who died by the name of Nancy Wallace right here in Georgia, who has, I think, no insurance. So there was a fundraiser for her yesterday to raise funds for the burial. We also have one of our community members, Mr. Ebenezer Pratt. His 17-year-old son was shot in the head, and he just died, I think, a few days ago. Wow. So as a community, that's the situation with us. We are letting everyone know that that's the situation. So you can join us, put your hands around Mr. Mohammed Dukle in Minnesota, the friends, the family of Miss Nancy Wallace here in Georgia, also Mr. Ebenezer Pratt, aka AB Pratt. I didn't mean to spoil your day, but that's the issue, and so I was excited to see Mr. Duke online. Well, that's Liberia, and more questions are coming about the TRC and all that. We are getting to 8 o'clock. We don't want to exceed that time. It's so exciting, so we have gone over our normal time. So, Mr. Muah, it's been a pleasure having you. Any final thoughts?
Well, the Liberia situation is like the biblical situation with Lot, Abraham, and Sodom and Gomorrah. And it's on the positive side, which is the thing about Liberia is there is that 1% chance, because I'm a numbers person, that something could flip and everything will just fall into place. When you see some of the kids, babies growing up, and that was from my perspective. When I would go, I would see that children everywhere are the same. I have 2 kids that they're following my footsteps with computers and stuff, right? But that's the environment they have. I've seen kids in Liberia where the only things that the parents, where the parents are and what they do, for example, seeing African show and people dancing. So when you see a 4-year-old dancing, you're surprised. But that's the talent that they have. All that tells me is, if we, whether it's Liberia, because we always want to wait for the government to actually do stuff. One thing I didn't say, when I first went, I used to bid on U-bid in this place. I bought a container of 500 used computer from the state of New Jersey. That was just me. Living in America, saying I'm going to in my mind, I will computerize the country. I thought I could do that. But it's not a one-man effort or one-man endeavor. It's all of us. Some of the things that you just said in terms of the community, but the community can go further than that. The community must not be dependent on how you feel about a particular government in power and what have you. It must be about the prospect for those kids that are there growing up, and the only option they have is not about information so that they can become stronger and better decision makers when they grow up. It's about them remaining dependent or not going to school for all the time and we can spare. Some of us in the US, we can spare $25. Sometimes we drink beer with $25. I like to be straight talk when I talk on anything. We spend a lot of money, but if we were organized, we will have the kind of impact on the community here in America, like other communities, and we'll have the same impact in Liberia. All the debates for what you call it dual citizen, this one. We talk about all these things, but when they say, okay, put the rubber on the road, let's go get these things done, people don't step up to the plate. but we can talk about the plate. And there are many opportunities, folks out there in the country, that you don't have to be there to impact. You can be here and impact. And I know there are Liberians here that are doing that. Hopefully, I get to engage more of those that want to do stuff, because I'm still interested in doing things in Liberia to support what needs to be there. There's not a library in the entire country. I tried to do one. It fell by the wayside. There's books. There's everything that can be done. I think we can get together, but that's just my passion and my plea as I sign off with you guys, that there's more to be done. We can do it, but we need to focus.
Okay. And someone who agree with you is Mr. Sando Kane. He works, with children in Liberia with his NGO. He's doing a tremendous job there. He said Liberians have to be more philanthropic for them to give $1 to a positive cause. They think that, and then he also agreed with you by saying that children are all the same, just a matter of opportunities.
Correct.
We can end on that positive note.
Thank you.
Danielle, anything? So before we close.
No, just, I guess, welcome back to the United States. And we look forward to seeing what you do to help the organizations here on the ground. I know here in Atlanta, we have the Liberian Association of Metropolitan Atlanta. And there are many similar organizations like that throughout the states. And I know a lot of times these organizations struggle to organize themselves and work on projects. And I think you would be a great asset to those types of organizations, because you've been there, you know what the need is, and you know probably the different channels that we need to navigate to accomplish things. So I really hope that you are able to invest your time in some of these organizations here in the States.
Absolutely. Dennis, just find a new job for me in Atlanta. Let me move back.
All right. You can come and work with and focus on Liberia. But we want to thank you so much.
I can be production assistant.
Exactly. With all those developers thing, you got to develop something for us.
We'll work on it. We'll talk. There's opportunities to do stuff educational wise in the country. I think the effort you did on the civic book is how we can mainstream some of that. It will help, because that's how change starts. It doesn't start big.
Right. So we want to thank you so much for joining. We hope to have you back anytime when your schedule is flexible. We want to thank those who are watching us by television or Facebook or YouTube. We want to say thank you for joining us. Next week, we're going to go back to our ethnic group series. We're going to have Dr. Sakwi Malakpai, who is going to be discussing the history and culture of the Loma ethnic group. You sure don't want to miss that. Until then, from all of us here at Focus on Liberia, our producer, Mrs. Yasendi Martin Kweye, our guest relations manager and product engineer, Mrs. Stephanie Setro, and also my co-host, Danielle, we say thank you so much for watching, and good night and God bless. It's not at all.